ARRI just announced a partnership that has the entire industry talking, and it's not with a camera company.
In general, this is a very smart move, and I'm very happy for ARRI to kind of follow the footsteps of Zeiss and also Leica and find a company they can hopefully rely on, maybe to bring some cash, and I think it's a really win-win situation for both companies.
ARRI Image Science in your pocket. If they play this right, it changes everything, not just for phones.
That can really introduce ARRI to a whole new generation and actually a whole new market.
ARRI in a smartphone, Sigma growing rice, and AI eating every memory card on the planet. Episode 106. Let's get into it.
This is Focus Check, the weekly CineTech podcast.
Welcome to episode 106 of CineD Focus Check. Johnny, welcome back from Japan.
Thank you, Nino. How are you? Did you manage alone?
Well, you brought my voice back, so
I didn't take it.
I just needed you, and then so now I can talk again. So
somebody commented, a person like somebody within my family was listening to the podcast last time and had to check twice that it's you talking.
Well,
that's the funny thing.
I had to check twice if it's me talking. I don't know what happened. Anyway, let's dive right into it. So you have a lot to tell us about CP Plus 2026. You wrote about your industry, about the industry trends, highlights, and everything in between. We'll dive into that, and then we'll also talk about the couple interviews you did there on the Harlowe Omni 360 Lite, a long interview with Panasonic about the LUMIX line and where it's headed. Also with Angelbird on the current memory shortages that are plaguing our and many other industries, the state of camera innovation and more. Very interesting discussion. We'll dive into Apple's latest updates with the MacBook Pro that was just announced for M5 Pro and M5 Max as alongside the new Studio Display and Studio Display XTR. We'll talk about an interesting development that ARRI announced in collaboration with Honor, the Chinese phone manufacturers, a strategic technical collaboration, ARRI Image Science coming to smartphones for the first time, and what that might mean. We'll talk about our review of the ClouZen offloader, which is a very interesting device that allows you to offload footage on the go from various card standards to SSDs, kind of without a computer. We already mentioned Apple. Then we have a little educational article on the whip pans, which is interesting. We'll talk about Sigma's latest product, which is a lot of new lenses and rice. So they announced that they're going to make rice. We'll talk about Atomos Ninja Raw, which is basically a HDMI-only version of their Ninja, I think. We'll talk about Panasonic's DMW DMS1 digital shotgun microphone. Maybe Felix can share his thoughts on this as an audio person, which was announced recently. Then I already talked about all the Sigma lenses that we'll mention quickly, and a new Nikon Nikkor Z7200 f2.0 2.8 VRS Mark II lens, which is lighter, shorter, and faster. And in the realm of autofocus adapters, we have also PDMOVIE introducing or teasing the Smart Fusion adapter, which is a native E-mount adapter that combines camera autofocus with LiDAR, which is actually a first time we see this. And last but not least, we also have a lab test that we haven't talked about yet for the Sony A7 IV, which was kind of long awaited by a lot of people. And at the very end, we're going to talk about why we actually swapped microphones. I think we mentioned it last time, but then Felix jumped in and wrote an article on that, and just to have the expert explanation why this makes sense. You might also hear why it makes sense, which is not my voice, but the quality of audio, I think, has improved significantly. But let's get started with CP Plus 2026. So you wrote a nice article on your impressions. Johnny, just take us to Japan.
So just that you know, guys, in Japan there are two major exhibitions. One is Interbi happening during November, and this is more broadcast cinema orientated, and the other one is CP Plus happening in February. And this is more photo centric, but you can really see how video is kind of being more and more important within this show. I think because in general everything is moving from filmmaking into content creation in general, and of course this trend is not bypassing Japan in any way. So CP Plus is a show that actually attracting around more than 58,000 people within the 4 days that it's happening. And it's very clever because there are 2 days like weekdays, and then there are 2 days in the weekend. And luckily, at least the days in the weekend were very nice, and that really drove many people out of home, and they made their way to Yokohama to see what's there to see. I have to say, we are both traveling quite a lot, and we are covering so many exhibitions. This particular one, there are two main things that I always so much amazed to see. First of all, it's really family friendly. You can literally bring your kids, you can bring your wife or husband, and I think it's more like of a kind of a small celebration. There's this huge installation of a train model over there. Your kids would love it, really. It's really amazing. We can see this in the video at some point. And the nice thing is that you see so many small kids trying to capture, either with small cameras or with mobile phones, they're really trying to capture the trains running. So it's a bit of kind of interactive. I don't know how long it takes them to build the whole thing or dismantle it later. It's always heartbreaking to think that you have to kill this. But the good thing is I saw this already last year, and I'm sure it's going to be next year because it's just very, very popular. So that's one thing. That's a really family-oriented show. And the other thing is education. You can really see almost in every booth, it doesn't matter the size of the booth, yeah, you can see people like lining up in order to sit down or stand and listen to something. It can be, of course, something really big about a camera, how to work with a camera, or hear experience of a professional who was working with the camera. It can be about editing, but also the small things, even how to use filter correctly. And in this regard, it's really nice to see that the Japanese are really into the small details. They want to know. They simply want to know. And I really like the concept of such an exhibition that offers so much education for people, because at the end of the day, we're always saying a tool is just a tool. But what people want to take from those, when they already spend the time besides touching the stuff, is to go back home with a bit of knowledge. And the Japanese are doing it really, really well. In terms of what we saw there, so, there were no big announcements on one hand from camera manufacturers. Maybe the only one that I kind of can exclude is Canon, that really had a beautiful booth. By the way, all the big manufacturers had very nice booth, but Canon also showed this prototype of kind of a box type camera. And they literally gave two options of this box camera, and they are really actively asking people to participate and vote which one they want more. I think we should put in the description later if you feel like voting, and just tell which one you like more. There's also a nice explanation in the video how the light travels and how, because you literally look from above. Yeah, so there's nothing new in terms of concept.
But that's a digital camera? Or
it's a digital. Everything is digital.
They said an analog concept camera.
Concept. Like the concept is analog, but of course it's we're back to digital here. Okay. And so this is just another way to do something a bit different, which I personally really appreciate. And I can tell you that there was a lot of people that asking and looking and checking how this thing will work. Yeah,
I saw a lot of people comment on this online that it's 3D printed, that it's really just like something that they kind of came up with.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter if it's 3D printed or not. I mean, I think what people should look at is the concept in general. And again, it's nice to see that a company is trying to think out of the box, because this is also related to another discussion that I had with Roman, the owner of Angelbird, about how everything is so similar those days. So I think if any camera manufacturers that want to be a bit different, you have to simply come up with a new concept. Talking about new concept, you could clearly see that Fujifilm they were attracting a lot of people, but actually what the star of the show, as far as I saw, was the Instax Mini Evo Cinema camera. This is this little, camera that we already reported, and it's now widely available, but it was
amazing. Did you bring one? You promised to bring one.
I thought yes or no, but at the end, I think I will personally wait for the second generation that can maybe shoot 30 seconds of video instead of 15.
I think you should shoot the whole podcast with this.
I don't know how much cinematic you can go in 15 seconds, Nino, But anyway, so much attraction this camera got. And they have a whole line of accessories, from viewfinder and a nice bag and everything. Very, very much Japanese style. But I think it's really worth saying that there is an interest. So I think maybe Fujifilm can really consider to take this type of concept beyond the Instax and maybe do something, because even the holding of the camera is so natural and it's so nice.
Well, the funny thing is, if you look behind us, we have a lot of old cameras around that are mostly 8 and 16 millimeter cameras. And you look back, some of those cameras 40, 30, 40, 50 years old. And it seems like there was a time when manufacturers were more creative in how to make those. And you're right. I think Fujifilm is the best proof that actually those cameras are successful if they're executed in a way that it's simply something that people haven't seen before. And somehow with all these mirrorless and before that DSLR cameras became a little bit boring. And it's nice to see manufacturers kind of breaking out of this box again. And now also have manufacturers like Canon experiment with this, even though it's not a product yet. But it's a clear trajectory where things hopefully are going, that they have to be really innovative, not just in more megapixels and more better dynamic range and all that, but simply usability and form factor. And I guess more niche use cases.
Yeah. I think here in the case of Fujifilm in particular, they're really dancing on two weddings. One, the older guys might know the form factor, and they're happy to see this again. And the new generation actually was never exposed to this type of form factor, so they're very happy to see and touch something new. So this is really a winner here. The other thing is that was very, very clear in this exhibition, and I think all the manufacturers did quite well. If it's OM Systems, Sony, Canon, Fujifilm, they all had those type of sliced products, like that you can see the bare bone of how things are made. And this is always so fascinating to look at next to let's say lenses, to see how the autofocus is working, or when we are talking about autofocus, how about stabilization, how the stabilization system is working in conjunction with the sensor itself and the actual lens. So those things were really fascinating to see. It's always attracting a lot of attention from people, and it's very, very wise to see. There was even, I think I didn't put it in this short video, but there was a nice GFX Eterna 55 from Fujifilm, all sliced. And again, it's really crazy how small the camera is. And in a way, because when you look at the ND, the electronic ND filter inside, you go like, so why actually it's not in mirrorless cameras? Because it is small.
So is it cheaper if I buy just 2 slices separately?
Maybe you can also choose which slice you want. Imagine if we can only choose the electronic ND filter. But anyway, so I think that this show in general, by the way,
looks very busy.
It is busy. And that also brings me, because I hate to repeat myself, but since we are traveling to so many shows and the main shows are NAB and IBC, I think that the organizers of those shows will really have to start thinking hard, because what we hear from so many manufacturers, that on one hand, to have a booth in one of those major shows is becoming extremely expensive. And the other thing is that the organizers of those shows want commitment right after the show, meaning within the show they will already make you sign a contract for next year. So you are kind of locked. You have to decide very, very fast. I think it's a little bit brutal in a way to make. I mean, I understand the business aspect of it, but if the organizers of those big shows will continue like this, they will literally end up with less companies, because you could clearly see how those small shows all over the place. We've been together at BSC, and now CP Plus, and the next one there's one in Nuremberg, and we know CineD and so on. Those small shows are much cheaper for the manufacturers to establish and build booth, and they're so much nicer, because at the end of the day you are able to reach your core audience. You're really talking to the end user here in a very nice, relaxed way. Yeah. So I think this is something that the organizers of the bigger shows have to note.
I think also, I mean, one thing just to add here is that the big shows are, I think, still mainly probably targeted at, you know, distributors and like the big business meetings, which is kind of like how those things used to be done. And what has changed is that now that the technology is so much more accessible, the smaller shows really attract the actual users. And you can see this. I mean, even the big shows, like last year's NAB, for the first time I had a feeling that I felt like I saw more actual users than distributors, dealers, you know, like having the typical suits walking around, having business.
Yeah.
They're still there, but this has really declined. So I think the focus on the end consumer in general has become much more important, which is why those small shows, on more local shows, are benefiting from that.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it logically, in the old days, the manufacturers had so much more money to fly their distributors in to show them stuff. Now everybody's cutting budgets. So in a way, maybe it's not so much necessary to bring the distributors anymore. Also, thanks to sites like us, the information travels so much faster. Yeah, and this is something that we always tell manufacturers. If you make an interview with us during a show, you're actually exceeding, like you can share with the audience globally your product, because you're already spending so much money on a booth, and how many people will eventually
show up there.
Exactly. So if you use our services, obviously you can expand, and I think it makes a lot of sense if you want to show what you've been working on globally. But yeah, I'm saying fearing, but I'm not. I will be very happy if we see more local shows like this. And the other thing is, in this show in particular, you could see how much the Chinese are really entering the market and doing everything. Plus, and this is the thing that I will take from this show, is the amount of lenses. Nino, you know what? Every time that I think that we've reached a certain amount of companies who make lenses, you see even more. And of course, you had a lot of announcements from established companies like Sigma and so on. But at the end of the day, it is the Chinese companies. Usually it's one company that suddenly have 2 or 3 sub-brand names. So you see so much from a lot. So on one hand, they all try to tackle familiar focal length, like 50 millimeters, good. And then suddenly you have companies like Laowa that is coming with a stereo zoom lens, which is a completely different concept altogether. I'm a bit, it's like Laowa is not a big company, and at the end of the day, to come up with concepts like this cost a lot of money. I mean, it's nice to come up with new concepts, but how many of those, how many pieces can you sell? I don't know. But I'm just saying, so...
Well, if you're the only one in a small niche, it's still good to be there. But yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, I think Laowa always did a good job actually finding niches that others don't cover. In the beginning, it was a lot of the
but it's expensive,
the wide-angle lenses, and now, of course, they bid it with the anamorphics and so on. They and the especially spherical normal lenses, they're becoming a little bit more mainstream. I just don't understand how many of those companies make money now, because many of them. Yeah, like you said, it's a very saturated market. I think there's such a huge amount of choice when it comes to lenses that it's simply hard to understand.
It's hard to follow, and I think us as a publication, as a company, we have to find a way to start to test many of those lenses on a, like we do with our lab tests with the cameras. And then I think it will be very beneficial for people to understand the differences. I think for now it's very much confusing, and because so many things will end up in the web, it's hard to see the differences, the optical differences. It's not that everything goes for big screens and then you need super high quality. Many times, and you know, if the lens is not perfect, it actually might add and give a certain look and not so clinical. So this is something that we have to think of how to find a way to maybe categorize or define those lenses. That's one thing. And for the manufacturers, one of the reasons that they are able to sell some stuff quite cheap or in a reduced prices, it's simply because they're not paying license fees to the mount owners, be it German or Japanese. And this is something that, I mean, we know that there's already a lawsuit against Viltrox that Nikon is executing, but I predict that will go and be even tougher on so many of those manufacturers, Chinese manufacturers, if they will not wake up and try to make things legalized. Because if you don't, of course it will be more expensive at the end because it means that we will have to pay. But I guess many of us are okay to pay a few more dollars knowing that everything but then the company gets the protocol. That means that they can do proper autofocus and so on because they are part of a certain alliance or whatever.
So let's dive into some of the content that you actually made there. Let's start with the LUMIX interview.
Yeah, so I conducted an interview with Tsumura-san. He's the executive vice president of Panasonic and director of the imaging business unit. And I have to say, he's a very pleasant person to talk to. He's very nice, simply very, very nice. And I think what people should know that there is a process when we are applying for such an interview. And I could see in some of the comments, people are saying, yeah, he didn't say anything, what a waste of time. So first of all, or he's reading his answers. I think we should approach this with a bit more respect and also respect to the Japanese culture. And first of all, I think one of the reasons that Tsumura-san is kind of also reading some of the text is because he doesn't speak English. You know, and he wants to be accurate with what he's saying, and he doesn't want to improvise here. And I think that from my end, he is really mastering this type of how to be, how to read a little bit, but also how to talk freely and look into my eyes and so on in terms of interview, like exercise.
Dynamics.
Exactly. So that's one thing. The second thing, for those who are thinking that he didn't say anything, again, I want to say, of course, those are not the direct answers to some of the questions like, where's the S1H successor? Or are we going to see a S9 II with a EVF and so on? What is your business strategy all in all? Of course, we would have preferred direct answers, yeah. But guys, you have to understand that with those big companies, it's not so likely to get direct answers. And there are many reasons for that. Part of it, some of the stuff are simply, there's a certain process that every big company like this is going. And I think what we should look into is not what he's not saying directly, but kind of read between the lines here. And if we do, you can see a very enthusiastic, high rank officer at the company, and I think we're going to see much more from Panasonic this year. This is my personal...
Well, like reading between the lines is exactly, I think, what you need to do with this. And I mean, from what I've seen is he's basically, first of all, I think we can expect some results from their fusion of their consumer and pro division, which happened only not so recently. I mean, I think a lot of people might remember that there used to be a really professional line of Panasonic cameras in the cinema sector, which doesn't exist anymore. There's no VariCam anymore. There's no EVA 1 anymore. But now they're really, on the other hand, with the LUMIX line, I'm sure you will agree, they have really pushed the envelope in a sense that what's capable with these cameras, which is also one of the reasons why we awarded it the the S1 II as our overall camera of the year 2025, because it's simply amazing the kind of technology and capabilities that they managed to really push into this small body, which is a lot of those things you do not even have on higher end cinema cameras from other manufacturers.
And also some of the lab test results are
Exactly.
really like ARRI in
Amazing,
a way.
yeah. And I think what I read between the lines, and he was kind of hinting at that the merger of their consumer and professional divisions is going to address this gap that you questioned him about compact cinema cameras, with the success, of course, of the ZR and the FX3 and so on, and the Z50. I think this is something they will have to address. So I hope that we will see something in this field. Of course, no exact words about anything, but my feeling is like they're working on something. And also, I think he was when it comes to the S1H successor, this was the most vague answer. So I feel like my feeling is there's not going to be anything in this specific field for the next couple months. I don't know what your feeling is, but I don't feel like there's an imminent update for this camera on the horizon.
I feel that Panasonic simply doesn't want to do what others already have in the market. They want to exceed expectations. Very simple. So what I take from this interview, that they are fully aware of the market needs. They fully know what the audience want. They are following us in they know exactly what we write and report about. They know the market trends, because we spoke about smaller cameras in general, compact cameras that are kind of booming now. Yeah,
S9 and so on.
Yeah, exactly. So they are not blind. And I think what we should give them is a bit of in a way, a benefit of the doubt here. But of course, they're working on stuff. The only thing is that I'm concerned, I can also read this in some of the comments, because the market is moving so fast and it doesn't stand still, some people simply kind of lost the patience and they're literally moving to other brands. And that's the big risk here, that if you don't fulfill demand, if you don't fulfill what people are wanting in a certain time, people are simply moving on. And there was a certain comment from somebody that I read that he loved Panasonic, he loved LUMIX, but on the other hand, since there was no S1H successor, he literally moved all his gear to Canon, from C400, C50, C80, and so on. And, it's they know this. But at the end of the day, it is a small team. In all those companies, I mean, I know that this is crazy to think of these huge companies. When you think about some of the divisions are not that big. And you always deal and talk to the same people because they're the one who are making the next generations of cameras. Yeah, and there's always a capacity of how much they can do and their timeline. But hey, let's see. It's only beginning of March, and I'm sure we're going to talk about some new stuff sooner than later.
I think the bottom line for me from this interview is that, of course, a lot of diplomatic corporate language, which has to be at this position, and not spilling the beans on anything unannounced. Very few hard product commitments. I think he acknowledged that there is a cinema camera gap, but it's not, they haven't addressed this yet. But I think there's something maybe coming. S9 EVF, I think you pushed him on this a little bit. This seems like something they're aware of. So I hope in the future they also no commitment here, of course, but maybe we will see something like, Sony kind of addressed this with the FX2, the feedback on the FX3. So maybe they will give us something in this thing. And for me, it was important to hear that the Micro Four Thirds really isn't dead. So, because that's, I think, the fear that a lot of people have is that they will drop the Micro Four Thirds form factor, sensor size at some point. But this was a clear commitment that it's not. Yeah. And I think the strongest concrete news is that there are going to be new products in the camera line in 2026. And, of course, a broadcast camera roadmap. Yeah. So.
Let's see. I mean, for the Micro Four Thirds, me personally, I'm not that enthusiastic anymore because now we reached a point that you have very small body, full frame cameras. So I think even for the Micro Four Thirds, you really have to find a specific niche for it. And when I say specific niche, for example, if you're a bird watcher, there is no other mount that can be as perfect as this one. Or if you're doing wildlife filming and photography in general, this is really because you're almost multiplying the focal length. So you still have a large sensor to some extent, plus you can really use whatever lenses and have even a farther reach for the animals you're looking for. So that's, for example, a perfect scenario for Micro Four Thirds. For the S9 or whatever will come after it, the S9 is an amazing, capable camera. And one of the really only complaint that people have, I mean, I understand what Panasonic wanted to do. They literally wanted to do like a mobile phone style camera, in the sense that you use the screen for judging what's there. But if you want to be a little bit more serious, of course, you need a viewfinder also in order to expose correctly and in order to frame correctly. So this is something they're fully aware of. Yeah. But anyway, guys, I really encourage you to look at this interview. Maybe you can find even more hints of what's coming up in general. I'm just saying that don't lose hope. The Panasonic is really, I mean, this is now the 25th anniversary of LUMIX. And what we could see before is, some of the biggest manager actually signing, leaving a message over there. I just want to get the name correctly. This is Akira Toyoshima-san. He's the Panasonic CEO. He left a greeting for the 25th anniversary. You can see this, And then it's, by the way, this is such a nice idea that they had. They had a basic thing writing about their commitment to the industry, and then people started to fill up stuff. And then at some point, Akira Toyoshima-san suddenly was there. And it was very nice to see him and meet him. And he left a message, and they're acknowledging this is the 25th anniversary, and obviously they have to do something.
Did he draw the dinosaur? That's my biggest question.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
At least I was witnessing what he's writing. There was no dinosaurs involved.
Okay. I just want, because we're already talking about Panasonic, let's talk about this little microphone that they announced.
Yeah.
This was called LUMIX DMS1 digital shotgun microphone. I mean, maybe also Felix can share his opinion as a audio professional here. What do we make of this? You're also a Panasonic user anyway, so.
Yeah, exactly. I checked out the microphone, or I watched some reviews of audio creators. Generally, it's a modern and cool concept to have like a digital on-camera microphone, as I think also Sony has something in that direction. And
So what is it? But it's omnidirectional?
I think this is called this is a beamforming technology. So there are several microphone capsules inside of this capsule on the top. There basically beamforming technology means you can achieve different directivities with one microphone basically. So you can say be directed in the front, be directed in the back, or be wider, be closer. So that's the technology that they're using there, I think.
And you have to select it in camera, or you do this in post?
No, you select it on the device itself. I think we have to be clear. This is not a 100% professional microphone. It doesn't have an XLR or anything.
Exactly.
That comes to fulfill a certain need or gap that Panasonic had so far. As Felix said, because Sony and others do have similar microphones like this. The big advantage here that it allows 32-bit float recording, and on some of the LUMIX cameras, depends. You have to check which one, and some cameras will have a firmware update in order to work with this. I think if you are running and gunning, instead of using the camera mic or any other shotgun mic on the camera, that can be a very nice solution. That's exactly what I would. It's like an extension of a camera mic.
So you select the characteristic as you are using it.
You have those 6 options on the back, which you can kind of select through.
It's lit up, by the way. It's beautiful. There's a little blue line around, so you know exactly what you selected.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And
The only thing is the price. Sorry, I just have to say that it's a bit steep. It's $400 US for this. But again, if you look at other equivalent devices, it's more or less the same ballpark.
Yeah, and you have some options on the side like limiters or pre-attenuation and stuff that you can kind of choose, which, you can set an auto limiter or adjust the gain, of course. All those things. I think generally, as mentioned before, it's cool and modern.
Is it something you're going to get for your S1 too?
The thing is, I watched some videos and sound comparisons also, and what I noticed is I think this microphone does not replace a really good shotgun mic for you.
Okay.
When you use it in a supercardioid mode, it's still, depending, I think, does not sound as good as a traditional supercardioid, because I think just this beamforming technology is not that accurate still like a traditional supercardioid microphone. But where this microphone probably is really good is having it for ambience.
And and every now and then maybe get a little bit of a statement of somebody in camera, but not the main thing.
Exactly. And the cool thing is you can kind of basically press a button and it can capture your voice behind the camera and in front of the camera, which is a nice feature. Useful. I think you can switch through there, but I think if you are doing a lot of interviews and stuff, it's still better to go with a supercardioid shotgun mic and maybe even of course a lavalier mic or something. But cool. I think it's cool and nice to see that LUMIX is also here, like thinking about audio a lot, and Yeah, especially, of course, you're losing the cables. I mean, you can simply use the smart hot shoe, which is always nice to Exactly. One thing, though, what would be really great is you lose also the ability to enter a
external
mic into the camera directly, or timecode also. That would be, of course, a cool thing if this kind of would record audio, and with the 3.5 millimeter you could kind of get a timecode signal or something into the camera. Then it would be even more professional, or would elevate the whole camera to.
Well, maybe that's something they can do via firmware updates.
Maybe, But I think in general it's cool to see. Yeah.
Cool. All right. One other interview you did was with Roman Rabic from Angelbird, the CEO of Angelbird, which actually wasn't product centric at all. It became quite philosophical, but in a very interesting way.
Roman is such a nice person to talk to. He knows his job, he knows his profession, he knows inside out the memory industry. So I think it's kind of a decision that we made in general, like not to talk about a specific recording media card this time, but all about the industry in general. First of all, how AI is eating the world's memory supply. I think many people are kind of ignoring what's happening, and it doesn't matter if it's an actual memory or even older hard disks. All the main suppliers in the world are literally very busy right now to cater the needs of NVIDIA and others and all
data
those
centers.
Data center. That's one thing. So, and the results for us as end users, that we see, of course, price increase. It was quite interesting to hear Roman saying that actually this is not really a crisis as far as it's concerned, but more like a healthy return to a healthy pricing structure, the one that was before Corona. And now when you pay a bit more, of course, it allows the companies to do more stuff and open more factories and so on. One thing that I was a bit surprised, because you can still see at B&H or CVP, our supporters, you can find like actively discounted cards. And imagine it's the same like if you have a gold bar and you say, guys, here's a gold bar, buy it today 20% cheaper. Why? So apparently they do have some supply, still have some stocks that they want to kind of get rid of. And I think as Roman and I both concluded, buy the memory cards when you really need them, and not just to stock up. The other thing that is very noticeable.
But I just wanted to add, he actually says that he, as a manufacturer, and actually the trajectory, like the horizon is much further in the future. So he only knows that in 12 to 24 months from now, the situation will be worse. And he actually even mentioned that I think he thinks it's not going to get easier even until 29. So that was a bit scary to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why we also talked about camera to cloud, which in so many ways going nowhere because the infrastructure is actually not really there to do a transfer to the cloud, and you're literally moving the whole problem to a different place because you still need some place to store the whole thing. But the other thing was it was interesting to hear that the CF Express in general is gaining more ground. We know that SD is very popular; it's still there, but there's always a limitation here in terms of how much the card can do in terms of speed and all of those things. So the future is CF Express card, but there was no mentioning of new standards here. I mean, we just entered the version 4 in general, which are much faster. But of course, that always, the blanket is very narrow. That means if it's faster, it generates more heat. The camera you have to find a way to dispense this heat and so on. But I think also in our conversation we talked about local shows and how much it's important to be there in local shows. And the other thing is, this is something that Roman actually noted, how different markets are reacting to different cameras. For example, in our discussion, we found out that the Nikon ZR, for example, will be very, very strong in some regions in the world, like the sales in general, and in some other regions, almost nothing.
Interesting.
Yeah, and the same with other cameras. So eventually it's balancing everything because some manufacturers will have whatever camera, it will be sold really, really well here, but then much less better in other regions. So that was interesting to see that there are different flavors. Yeah, people are looking at stuff in a different way. But the main thing was, of course, almost at the end, if the camera market in general is getting boring. There was a point that actually we kind of flipped jobs, and Roman was interviewing me, and I had to admit in a very open way that in so many ways the camera market is getting boring. And one of the reasons is that everything feels the same. We reached a certain level of image quality and a certain level of audio quality. And it seems like that instead of looking for new solutions, at least for now, it seems like we're getting a bit more pixel here and less pixel there. And we are seeing those small increments in quality. But there is nothing that, when you get a camera and you go like, I really, really want to work with it because they all feel the same.
Yeah, the technology has definitely plateaued, and now it's just become very hard for people to even find a justification to replace their current camera system because the camera from 5 years ago is still great.
And that's the thing. Actually, it didn't come out so strong maybe on the transcription of this interview, but we talked a lot about the second-hand market. There's so much good equipment out there. Some of them in really, really great condition. This is something also us as a company, we might have to look and simply hook up with one of the vendors that is specializing in second-hand. There's nothing wrong with second-hand. There's no really need sometimes to run and buy the latest and the greatest because it's all good. Yeah, so much of it is really, really great. And this is something that you as a customer, especially in times like this, you should really look into before you put your money on new stuff. Good. Yeah, so it's an interesting discussion. I really encourage you guys to just take a deeper dive.
And the last one you did was with Helena from Harlowe, which used to be called HoboLite.
Yeah,
they rebranded 1.5 years ago because I think they went beyond lights. But what was your impression? I think when I see their products, it's beautiful. I mean, it's very uncommon to see a lot of different products that are really designed in a way that they are appealing also, I guess, to like people who are after nice design and not just technology.
Yeah, first of all, a shout out to Helena Bian, and she's the CEO and she is the owner of this company. Very open-minded person, very pleasant to talk to. And she is very much into sharing her experience. And I'm sure we're going to jump on a probably dedicated podcast with her, because at the end of the day, she is actually representing a medium-sized company. And with all the tariffs around and all the other big giants, it's quite amazing to see how she is surviving, how she reinventing herself, how she really looking into giving a complete solution. And when I say complete solution, it's not that you only buy the light, you will buy a very nice bag with it and a cage maybe. Like they're really trying to think from A to Z and not just sell a product, but an experience.
And it's a product that you would just put in your living room, just as a stylish thing sometimes, and not just as a professional item.
Absolutely. But again, she is still trying to be very professional. Her knowledge is really amazing. I mean, I simply enjoy talking to her. And in this particular case, she was showing the Omni 360. It's a 2-watt light. Again, it's a solution. I'm personally, I'm not using 360 lights, but 360 cameras. But for those who are using, they know very well that because the sensor is relatively small, there's a drop in quality from a certain point onward. So she just tried to address this with something very small, very simple. And the innovative part is that it simply doesn't show. Yeah. And there's small things like there's a hand gesture to switch it on and off. So you can always have, you don't have to fiddle with buttons and so on. But she's very passionate. I really encourage you guys to look at the video just to see a CEO who understand marketing, who understand product, who understand design, and really very passionate about what they do.
Yeah. No, really cool products, and really trying to find some niches that nobody else is covering in a stylish way. All right, let's move out of CP+, if you agree, and just look at some of the other news of the week. Now, Apple just announced the new MacBook Pro, finally, that a lot of people have been waiting for, with the M5 Pro and M5 Max. Now, if you remember, we only in October, Apple announced a MacBook with M5, but not the Pro, and people have been patiently waiting for a new generation of their chip in the high-end computers. So now we finally have it, and the interesting thing here is that they have a new. So basically, they dropped they kind of combined the. I think there's no Ultra anymore, at least not for now. They have a new technology called fusion architecture that basically combines two dies on a single system on a chip. Practically, it means that there should be a substantial, according to Apple, substantial performance leap. So, for example, you have an up to 18-core CPU now with 6 super cores, and that should be Apple's fastest CPU to date, according to them. And 12 performance cores, which are optimized for multi-threaded workloads. So that in practical terms means that up to 30% faster CPU performance compared to the M4 Pro, which is the predecessor. So it's kind of significant. I mean, if you think back to we are still using M2 Max, I think, or I think it's Max, M2 Max computers. The jump from M2 Max to M3, M3 Pro, M3 Max was not so big. It became a bigger one to the M4 again, and now this one seems like a big one again. So
but
it's
you
kind
don't expect a company to say we have new product and they're actually running slower.
Yeah, but I'm looking at benchmarks, and the benchmarks between, like the comparison between the M2 Max and M3 weren't as huge as they are later. And with this one, I'm curious to see independent benchmark results, because it's also a CPU jump. Like usually we've been talking about GPU, which is of course more important for us as video people, because of course of all the acceleration that these chips have built in terms of performance for H.265 encoding and so on, which is what we need most of the day basically. But this one also has a significant GPU acceleration. They say that each GPU core that has up to 4 times faster AI performance, which is of course purely a GPU measure, and up to 8 times faster compared to the original M1 Pro and M1 Max. That's significant, of course, which the first generation of their Apple Silicon chips is now already, 5-6 years ago. So this is a big jump, of course.
Is this going to make us consider to change?
I think honestly, I'm still happy with the performance of this for editing. Most of the stuff, I don't need more power. The only way where we see actually difference is, I mean, we're talking to Gunther to actually, upgrade his computer for the
lab tests.
the AI noise reduction that he needs for the lab test Latitude results in DaVinci Resolve. And we did actually a test comparison between the M4 Pro we have at the office versus this M2 Max, and we saw an 8 times increase in real-time noise reduction performance compared to between M2 Max and M4 Pro. So that is significant, and this is specifically something that they apparently have enhanced more, because Apple is specifically mentioning DaVinci Resolve performance for these processes. So if you have specific use cases which go beyond normal editing and compression, as soon as you apply real-time effects, it's going to make a huge difference. I don't think you and I will need it, honestly, but for Gunther, it will make a big difference. So also, they've enhanced battery life. They say that there's 3 hours better battery life. This is always something important for the MacBook Pros, in my opinion, because, of course, they have good battery performance, but as soon as you start editing, it's going to drop significantly. So every additional hour here really counts if you're on a plane.
Because those are relatively big, the 16-inch are still quite heavy.
Yeah.
Do they have something new for us that we can
Well, the 14-inch is there. We know Florian at the office has the M4 Pro in 14-inch, which he chose because it is lighter and easier to travel with. I honestly will have to think about if we upgrade to maybe look at the 14-inch simply because of weight, just to have a smaller package, which is just as powerful. And maybe I can live with a slightly smaller screen, which is actually not that much smaller because of the smaller bezels now. So the border area that is much slimmer. So basically, it's worth thinking about, just to save, how it is. To save weight when traveling is paramount. They also introduced a new N1 wireless chip. So it's a custom wireless networking chip that enables Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 6. So Apple, we know already with the phones as well, are moving into having their own Wi-Fi chips and even, I think, 5G chips in the future. So also in terms of like increased efficiency, which is going to need less battery power. And they've also upgraded the Studio Display. So the Studio Display XDR, if some of you guys might remember, this has been introduced already in 2019. The original 132-inch, extremely pricey at around $5,000. That was the one that actually they charged a lot of money for that additional stand. They seem to have gotten the message, and now the new one is only 27-inch 5K. So actually the same size and resolution that the 27-inch iMac had already 10 years ago, which unfortunately has been discontinued. I always loved this form factor and this computer. A lot of people now are still using the old iMac kind of in a hacked way as an external screen because the screen is so good. If you want to get a display at this size and this resolution, I think there's only a Samsung, which hasn't been on the market for too long, which is still $1,500 or something. So it's pricey. I mean, even this display. This, of course, the XDR one is the Pro version. There is a normal version, which is same size, same resolution, and it's around $1,600. That's the Studio Display. And the XDR version is, of course, you can create HDR with this. It has 2,300 local dimming zones. It's not OLED, but it's mini LED. So it should give you a very, very good contrast ratio. They say it's 1,000,000 to 1. And it has a sustained brightness of 1,000 nits with peak brightness of up to 2,000, which is significant for a desktop display. It makes a difference, and that should be good for grading in many ways. Apple claims 80% Rec 2020 coverage for HDR video editing, and it supports both P3 and Adobe RGB. Also, first for Apple, 120 hertz refresh rate. That's for the XDR, which we haven't seen before. Of course, that should make it feel quite snappy when you're editing, and less latency. But yeah, so I think it's and it's less pricey than it used to be. This starts at $3,600. That's versus the $5,000 that they charged for the 32-inch. Of course, it's a bit smaller and it's not 6K, it's 5K. But I think for me, 27-inch in 5K is the perfect resolution. I always felt that, if you have a screen that big, it just needs the pixel density, like it needs a proper pixel density. Otherwise, like the Asus, some of the Asus displays we've reviewed, some have very good resolution, but then if you're 32-inch, it's 4K. It's not a great resolution for editing. If if you need to see your entire kind of interface. So anyway.
Just one thing, back to those laptops. Is it true that actually those will come with no charger?
Yeah, we just somebody commented, and we just talked about it before the podcast. So actually, Apple decided to drop the charger also from the MacBooks, not just from the iPhones. I mean, I think with the phones, I completely understood it. It's something that really you can use almost basically every USB charger. Of course, you will need a more powerful one to charge the phone quickly. With the laptops, I don't know how you feel. I think it's a bit of they always say it's an environmental decision, but honestly, of course, it's also a cost-saving issue for Apple. And I think I don't think it's a good idea to do this with a laptop charger, simply because it needs 100 watts or something, or 65 at least. I guess I guess it's 100 for the MacBook Pros. So it's not like you can use any USB charger that you have lying around. It's just not going to be powerful enough. And if you have an old MacBook, you're probably going to sell it with a charger, because if somebody, you will have to buy a charger for these. Of course, there are third-party solutions which are more affordable. But yeah, I think it's a bit of a weird decision in my opinion, especially also because they have MagSafe. So you will need to buy the Apple one if you want the MagSafe, and you don't want to use one of your USB ports, because you'll sacrifice one USB port if you charge it through that. You can charge through an adapter too, but then of course things get a bit more cumbersome. So yeah, no more charger. So that's how it is. Smaller packaging, but that's the new MacBook Pros. It seems like specs-wise quite interesting upgrade, even if you're on a more recent unit. They have a really nice video, of course, doing a great job, as Apple usually does with their marketing, promoting all different use cases that are now a lot about AI as well. Apple really pushing on-device AI, which I think is nice. They really try to keep that privacy focus and really pushing on-device AI, which I think is going to be big in the next couple of years, as people probably don't want to run everything through the cloud and have it more local, especially when you have a computer like that, which is capable of running models locally. It's becoming more feasible. So yeah, that's the new MacBook Pro, M5 Max and M5 Pro. Let's move on to
maybe the biggest news of the week, no?
Well, from last week, actually. So ARRI, we've been talking about this. I think I embedded the episode of the podcast here. It was episode, 77. So that was, half a year ago or whatever, or more, actually. The ARRI announced a collaboration with Honor, which is a Chinese smartphone manufacturer, which might not be as well known yet in the West.
Well,
but
it is much more now.
It is much more known now. We have reported about Honor a couple months ago because they showed a concept of a smartphone that's going to be released this year. They call it the Honor Robot Phone, and it's basically a little Wally in your pocket. So it's almost like a DJI Pocket 3 combined with your phone, and it's like a little gimbal that folds out of your phone. And the original video that they shared was AI generated, which drew a lot of criticism. And the new one seems a little bit more based on a prototype. I'm not sure. But the big news here is that ARRI announced that they are going to cooperate with Honor and basically put their image science into that specific phone as the first product, which is going to be released later this year, I think. So what do we make of it?
First of all, about the product, this is innovation. And that's the first time that we see such a smartphone. So I really salute Honor for coming up with something new and something a bit different. Now, we all know, and we talked a lot about the situation of ARRI. I think in general, this is a very smart move, and I'm very happy for ARRI to kind of follow the footsteps of Zeiss and also Leica and find like a company they can hopefully rely on, maybe to bring some cash. And I think it's a really win-win situation for both companies. Honor in general, as a mobile phone company, is already much more known now than 48 hours ago, for example. And for ARRI, it's really up to ARRI how to play the game here, because if they will just do kind of simple LUTs or looks or whatever it is, it might be that they will be kind of defeating the purpose of really ARRI in a phone. But if they will play the cards right, that literally can open so many doors for them, and that can really introduce ARRI to a whole new generation and actually a whole new markets in general. So if that will be the case, I think we will still continue to see some, of course, ARRI innovative on the higher end, but now we might get a mini ARRI on the lower end. And I also hope that ARRI, either with Honor or with other companies, will also be more active on the middle ground, because that's exactly where the money is. So I'm very happy for ARRI to find a strategic partner here, and I think it really depends on them what they will make out of it.
I was surprised that they partner with Honor. I think...
Why?
Well, I think of course, they have Honor already has a good reputation for high image quality. So maybe that was one of the reasons why they chose them. However, in terms of market share, of course, they are nowhere compared to some of the other, even Chinese brands. But of course, some of them already were covered.
Exactly.
Xiaomi is with Leica and so on. But I was just a little bit surprised. I think it's not the end of... Well, first of all, this for sure is a money-making venture also for ARRI. I'm sure they get a hefty license fee from Honor for them to use their technology and branding, of course. However, I hope / expect that ARRI will also announce a collaboration maybe with a more traditional camera manufacturer. We already have the ARRI Log-C in LUMIX cameras, but it's kind of like a small thing. We all know that, that's what we talked about in this many podcasts before, is that ARRI is missing this medium kind of product, which if they had their branding, but also some of their technology into a more affordable camera, it would sell like hotcakes, even if it's technology-wise maybe only 80% of what's possible, because people love the image from ARRI so much. And if let's say Panasonic, for example, releases a camera that is really branded almost like Nikon's like Nikon X Red. I know it's the same company, they own Red, but let's say there is a Panasonic X ARRI or ARRI X Panasonic, that would sell like crazy. And it could make it... I think ARRI has always had the problem that they don't have the manufacturing capacity. We know that they are the custom components that they have made for them. Probably a lot of it in Asia is all shipped to Munich and assembled there in their headquarters, essentially, which is really handiwork. Like, they don't have the capacity to make anything. They don't have an assembly line to make a huge amount of cameras. But they could do this if they partner with somebody. And we see it here with a smartphone manufacturer. I don't think this is the end of the road. I think there is this huge opportunity for them. I'm just surprised that they start with a smartphone because, of course, that is kind of the low end. It's a smart move, I agree. I hope that it will match expectations in terms of image quality, and I hope it goes beyond just a branding exercise, because at the end of the day, of course, it's a completely different sensor in there, and if there's an ARRI sticker on it, people have expectations for the image quality, and I hope they can fulfill that and are not going to disappoint it. But having said that, I think there is room for a collaboration like that with an existing larger camera brand for a medium-sized camera that is co-branded with them, and I think it would do very well. The question is just who could it be? I think Panasonic would be a good fit because they probably, like we talked about before, are missing actually that cinema branded camera in their whole lineup right now. So imagine ARRI coming in and releasing a camera that, say, is about in the $4,000 or $5,000 price bracket. It could do really well.
I think the money is in China, Nino. The money is in China. And I think it's much faster for Chinese companies to react to opportunities. And this is clearly a business opportunity. So I don't think that a company like Honor I don't think they will have enough only with the mobile phones. Like I think they probably recognize the bigger picture here. And I think that for years we've been saying that for now the dominance is in Japan with manufacturing cameras, and seldomly you have projects like DJI owning Hasselblad, but it's not that we have seen any big Chinese manufacturer actually doing proper cameras. We see a little bit here and there, but nothing fundamental. I think with a company that already used to do large-scale production, with the help of ARRI, maybe we're going to see something a bit different. And I will not jump to conclusion and say that Panasonic or other. I mean,
I'm just saying they would be a good fit.
From our perspective, it looks like a good fit, but there's also a substantial investment here, and I don't know. I think it's only mostly the Chinese who are capable of putting the money.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Let's see if DJI ever comes out with a proper, more traditional camera, or if they just like, okay, we're gonna focus on those niches too. But yeah, interesting development. It seems like when you read the press release and everything, it's like I don't think anything is kind of prepared. I don't think anything concrete is already happened beyond that announcement. It's that type of an announcement. I think it's more like a it's just kind of giving people just something to look forward to. To me, it seems like something they are starting to work on now, and also with the original announcement of the Honor robot phone, which was only AI generated. I think they didn't actually have the prototype, so they're probably working on it now only. But I'm very curious to what it will be. Yeah.
For me, there's something in the image. I can't put my finger, but when I look at the handshake between the owner of Honor and the owner of ARRI, there is something in this. If you look at the gentleman from ARRI, there is something there that, again, I can't really translate into words, but there is a sense. There's beyond. It's almost like happiness and relief.
I think you're interpreting too much into this.
I don't know. There is something in this specific picture that I would like to think that that's just the beginning of something.
Let's see. Yeah. Let's see. It's definitely a marriage of very I would say unexpected marriage.
Yeah.
It's like Let's see where this leads, but interesting times ahead, as you like to say. Good. Let's move on to a review that we released over a week ago, which is on the ClouZen OFFLOADER 16X. So, Johnny, copying footage in the field is always something that is a bit of an afterthought for many of us, I think.
Copy-paste, that's it, no?
Copy-paste, and then hopefully have a second copy somewhere, and hopefully use a transfer management software. But it's always been something actually that you and I have talked to also manufacturers about for many years, where I always felt that there's a real lack of devices for field copying where you don't need a laptop. Like you are on the shoot, and we've seen in the past some manufacturers come and go for one reason or another. I mean, we've seen what was it called? The NAR box, which is completely discontinued. I think we have still 2 of them lying around at the office, which are not really functional anymore. Great concept. So basically an SSD with an internal operating system, and you can connect external USB devices, but also just it can read SD cards and then do a checksum verified copy onto that SSD without using a computer. Went out of business. And then, of course, there was this other company called Nexto.di that had devices in this area, but it never became really big.
So Nexto.di in general belonged to the same person that owned the ClouZen.
Uh-huh.
So Nexto.di was acquired by TV Logic a few years ago. TV Logic, obviously, as a monitor manufacturer, maybe didn't really know what to do and how to do, and they.
So this is an accidental buy.
I don't know. I mean, when I did the factory tour at TV Logic, the gentleman Larry, the Korean gentleman behind Nexto.di, was there. He was working there. Very pleasant person to talk to, but obviously TV Logic didn't know what to do with it, and they killed it. Now, Larry has an expertise in such devices, so obviously the obvious thing for him was to open a new company by the name ClouZen and actually exceed of what he did so far. And the first product that he came up with, if you remember, was the ClouZen, the Tainer. The Tainer is a personal device. It's much smaller. And what the Tainer is also doing, it has you can back up to the cloud, which was one of the biggest strengths. We already reported about this product in NAB 2024. Now, the next step was to create something which is even really dedicated to DITs. And the OFFLOADER 16X is exactly this product. And I can't remember when was the last time that I was so impressed with something that was really, you could see that the company has expertise. And one of the main thing here is a ARRI style menu. Such an easy.
But before you talk about that, explain what it is.
Okay, so literally you have it's for copying, it's for offloading
locally without a computer.
Locally without any computer. Between cards, you can have 2 versions of this, either only SD cards, micro, whatever, or CF Express and SD cards.
The readers are built in.
Readers are built in. Of course, you can connect external devices like USB-C and so on. But not only that, you can really check the health of your cards, and you can repair your cards, and you can do a lot with things that you didn't even think that it's possible to do with the cards, because we all looking at this piece of plastic and goes like, okay, it's not working or whatever. I mean, I was even able to repair some of the stuff, and you can of course have diagnostic and then assess if you can still use the card, or maybe it's dangerous, because sometimes you think that your card is absolutely okay, but some sections in it are simply dead. So all in all, you have a complete diagnostic of your card. And as I started to say before, the menu to actually do some stuff is so simple. It's really ARRI style. You don't need any manuals. You don't have to worry about anything. You can, from the menu itself, you can decide what you want to do. So I was really, really impressed about how the whole thing is working. The only thing that I didn't really like about this one, there's a fan that kicks in at some point. For me personally, the fan is a bit too loud. There's no way to make it a bit more quiet, but maybe when you're on a set, and anyway the set might be a bit noisy or not, really depending. This is something that might either interrupt or not to others.
So how do you connect? So I have to connect the SSD or hard disk that I want to record, like copy to, right? Or is it built in?
No, there is no SSDs here. The only thing, it's like look at it as a hub. You either insert cards inside, and then you can either do duplication, copy, formatting, diagnostic, whatever, or connect external devices and do the same. Either you wanna backup stuff.
Yeah, but a practical application would be I have a multi-camera shoot. I have 5 cameras running at the end of the shoot. I'm taking those 5 cards, putting them in, and I can connect one SSD to it.
Yeah, just
or 2
click on the
SSDs
cards you
to it.
want to copy and what is the destination, and it will do the rest,
And
including.
it can do multiple destinations at once,
From what I remember, yes.
and also check some verification and all
Everything. They have their
Nice.
own proprietary way to do this, and it's really working. The only thing that this specific device doesn't have, this is a connection, a connectivity to the cloud, basically. Yeah. So the other thing is it looks a bit big, but it's really lightweight. So I think it's not even an issue to travel with such a thing. Of course, it needs a V-mount or mains in order to operate it. The only thing here is really the hefty price, and this is almost $4,000 investment for such a device. But on the other hand, it is a professional device. Yeah, you really have to think of big sets or DITs that are really constantly working. And we've been together on a set I think it was a year and a half ago, when the DIT was busy with, I don't know, there were like 6, 7, 8 cameras, and he constantly got cards. And I was like, my heart was like, is he going to miss something? Because also the mental health of somebody that is dealing with so many cards, and simply, you don't want to forget, you don't want to overwrite some on a card. So a device like this is exactly for peace of mind. Yeah, and it's working well. What they do have, because it's $4,000, they have a trial program. You can really register, and you pay a very like a minimum sum.
$1,000 deposit.
That's right, and then you will get back the refund $700. So it costs you only $300 to see if that.
Try it for 3 weeks.
Exactly, and I think that's a fair, nice thing too.
Yeah, very cool. I mean, I'm very happy to see innovation in this space, and that something is happening where you can basically be more independent of your computer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Especially with the peace of mind of all the checksum verification built into a hardware. Nice.
It's funny, we talk a lot about this, but at the end of the day, we are falling into the same trap of copy paste, and we are happy with that, especially when traveling. But
yeah, I still use Hedge. I use Hedge for multiple. Like if I have a proper shoot, I'll connect Hedge and use. But the problem always I run into is you don't have enough USB ports, so you have one connected to the reader, and then you have 2 more left, and then sometimes one is used as a charger, so you only have 1 left, and then you're like, okay, I can only copy 1 at once. So that's a bit of a thing.
I think that for me, it's never enough SSDs to copy 2. It's like, where's the extra SSD that I need?
Yeah. All right. Good. Let's move on to Sigma products. So Sigma announced a couple of new lenses about 1.5 weeks ago, just ahead of CP Plus actually. They announced the Sigma 35 f1.4 GG2 Art, which is smaller, lighter, and optically superior to the predecessor. Now, of course, the 35mm f1.4 is definitely one of those main lenses that photographers but also filmmakers will carry in their kit. I'm a big fan of the Art series of Sigma. It's just incredible, the quality that these have. My main go-to lens is their 2470 f2.8, which is an amazing lens, and all of their Art series lenses are incredibly high quality, I would say. Something that you have to pay a lot more money for, in my opinion, from other manufacturers if you want the same kind of quality for a spherical lens and beautiful bokeh and so on. So the new one is actually a new optical design. Features a redesigned 15-element 12-group optical formula, and they have also worked on the weight. Let me just check the weight, which is always good because, of course, good lenses always have a hefty weight. The L-mount version of this is 530 grams, which is, let me check if the comparison, but it should be quite a bit lighter than the predecessor. Still half a kilo, still considerable weight, but I think it's fine for what it is, and it's only $1,000. I mean, that's for me always the cool thing about Sigma is just like you're not compromising on the image quality, but you still get something for a really affordable price. And it comes originally for E mount and L mount. Unfortunately, still no RF full frame lenses allowed by Canon from other manufacturers. We hope that this will change in the future. But they also announced the development of a Sigma 85mm f1.2 DG art, which is going to fulfill their trio of 85mm 1.2 portrait lenses. Of course, sounds like a small improvement over 1.4, but this is significant in terms of how much more light can travel through the lens. I think it's quite almost a stop, and that means twice amount of light goes through. It's, of course, this usually is a much more pricey lens. We already have the existing, 50 and 35mm, if I get that wrong. Yeah, at 1.2. Now, you can, of course, compare this to the competitive landscape here. What do we have from other manufacturers? There is a Nikon Z85 f1.2, and there's also a Canon 85 1.2L, which is their RF version, which is the one you will have to go for if you want one for Canon, because, again, there is no third-party RF full-frame lenses in the market yet, legally. And but this one is going to be released later this year in September. Then we also have the announcement of a Sigma 15mm f1.4 DC contemporary APS-C lens. Now, the contemporary series is a more affordable kind of like, I wouldn't say kit lens, but more like a, small travel anywhere lens. It's not going to have the optical perfection of an art lens, but it's still very decent. But it's all built to be smaller and lighter. And that is only also going to be, 430 euros in Europe, and probably similar price in dollars. So, but it's a wide angle for APS-C. And it's nice that they also go into this.
But the big news is actually not so much lenses, Nino.
And just let me finish. This is available for RF, E mount, and X mount. RF is here available because it's APS-C. They are allowed to do that. And the last lens I want to mention is the Sigma AF Cineline 28-105 T3. We already did an interview about that. I think it was at IBC, maybe NAB. And I embedded it in the article, it's linked. This is their autofocus version of this cinema zoom.
No, this is based on a photo.
It's based on a photo lens, but it is the second autofocus cinema zoom. The little caveat here, it has a protruding front
like
element. It's moving out when you zoom, which is not great for a cinema zoom. It's a T3 lens. Now, for me, the question general, of course, it is E-mount only, I think. And the question for me is that how much do we need those autofocus cinema zooms or cinema lenses in general, which, like with a proper autofocus switch, when we have now adapters from Tilta and Viltrox and PDMOVIE in the market, which basically can make any cinema manual lens into
I think it's very valid
lens.
Because I probably wouldn't use, unless I have to, any of the Tilta, Viltrox, PDMOVIE devices, because you need additional stuff for it. So if I have a native autofocus lens, I'm happy to use it. It just need to work for me.
The motor basically,
yeah.
And but of course, I'm just saying it's something just worth thinking about as an alternative. But you mentioned the other big news. The other thing that Sigma announced, which was kind of like on the side, was that they're growing rice. So they have announced that they're going to make their own rice. Why do you think that is?
Well, rice is a big topic in Japan in general. And this is almost like people will always need rice. This is the basic food, and I think that Japanese will always prefer to manufacture their own rice instead of buy rice from China. It's almost like a no-go. Yeah. And I guess it's a business opportunity for the owner, for Yamaki-san, the owner of Sigma. He also, the same like with the lenses, it was always the main topic, made in Japan or made in Aizu, which is the region that they are. And
well, I think that what they're saying in the press release is interesting. That basically, I mean, Japan has a significant problem with an aging population, and I think they acknowledge that a lot of farms are going out of business in the region where they actually have their factory. So they are trying to step in and formed actually a farm corporation for that purpose to kind of salvage, I think, existing farms that otherwise would go out of business, which is a commendable thing to do, of course. And I think you did this amazing factory tour at Sigma. It was that 8 years ago, long time ago.
It's easy to check.
Yeah, I think it was 2018.
7 years ago.
7 years ago, and it just shows how much there always seems to be so much commitment to the people and the region and everybody who's working for the company. It feels like a family, no? It's
people tend to stay there for a very, very long time when they work, for sure. And they're very proud in what they're doing. But yeah, it's just an interesting development all in all, I think.
Yeah.
And, maybe next time we can review the quality of the rice. What can I tell you?
I'm getting hungry already, so okay. So I think we're almost through. Just another mention of a new Nikon lens, Nikkor Z7200 f2.8 VRS Mark II, which is also lighter, shorter, and faster than the predecessor. And of course, that's going to be their new standard 7200 zoom, and it's priced at around $3,200 or 2,900 euros. So basically, last year they began upgrading their holy trinity of lenses, starting with the upgraded 2470. And now it's time for the 7200. So that's kind of like the, of course, go-to zoom lenses that you have in your kit as a photographer or filmmaker if you're working with autofocus lenses on the Nikon camera. And what's always nice is the reduction of weight in these lenses. I think Sony has also done a good job with their latest generation of the 7200, and now we see it also from Nikon. And the outside major difference is that it's 12 millimeters shorter and 26% lighter, which is quite a big difference, actually. That's nice to see. And optical stabilization is built in, new autofocus system, which is faster. And so basically all the optical design is enhanced and should give you even a better autofocus result and better stabilization, and then still a lighter lens, which is great to hear. And also quick mention of PDMOVIE. They have teased, if you remember this company, also we reported about them before. They, next to DJI, were one of the companies that introduced a LiDAR autofocusing system. Now, of course, they're a very small company and they have nowhere near the reach of DJI. But I was always amazed by their solutions. And I think we also did a nice video on a beam splitter thing they made at IBC, I think 1 or 2 years ago. And now they have announced, I think that's the first ever, a native Sony E-mount smart adapter that actually combines the camera autofocus with LiDAR. So they have that LiDAR technology that they've had before. And now they're combining that with the camera autofocus, similar to what Tilta and Viltrox have been doing with their solution. That's going to be interesting. It's going to be, it looks like a quite large motor, which is a bit unfortunate. I have to say PDMOVIE is really targeting kind of consumers, prosumers. It's not a high-end solution that you would use on a high-end set, to be fair, but it's something that the creator can use. And if it works well, of course, nice solution to combine the real-time recognition, real-time eye autofocus and touch tracking. with the advantages of LiDAR, which is built straight into the motor. But you will have to mount it in a way that it's kind of pointing outwards, which might limit the way you can mount the motor. But it's just a teasing thing. We can't really tell. It's very affordable, like all of their products. I mean, it's part of their Life Air 4 Smart family, which is like more products. The regular price is $200, and they make it even cheaper if you already have one of their products. Incredible. Let's see how it goes. We are actually finally about to release our review of the Viltrox autofocus adapter, believe it or not, which we've teased about before. So by the next time we see each other, we'll talk about that review. And last but not least, let's talk about our Sony a7 IV lab test, which we've released. Now, this is something that a lot of people have been waiting for, because it is I would say
the latest and the newest.
The latest and greatest from Sony, and also a significant sensor upgrade. I think it's fair to say. So,
yeah, I think what we found here, and I'm always going to the summary from Gunther, that basically, if you look at even the cinema line from Sony and the lower end, like the FX2, for example, this is simply a better camera, and this is something for you to consider if you are into the market of new Sony stuff. And all in all, everything is very solid. It's a solid performer. Yeah, there is nothing, and don't forget, we don't get any internal RAW codec with Sony. So, but we do have a compressed 4K 10-bit 4:2 XAVC. The rolling shutter is middle ground, okay, around 14 milliseconds in full frame and APS-C mode. Dynamic range is solid at 2.4 stops SNR2, and the exposure latitude shows a strong 9-stop with some room towards the end. But the nice thing is that somehow the noise processing is much more pleasing than the previous Sony alpha cameras, and I think this is a big plus, because we are always talking about how strong noise reduction in all of those modern cameras is, and this is really distracting us because you get this plasticky look. So it seems as if with this specific camera, you are able to overcome the noise all in all. Yeah, so clear recommendation from Gunther. If it's this A7 V over the FX2, then A7 V is a better camera.
Yeah, rolling shutter is kind of middle ground. It's nothing to write home about, but it's okay. But yeah, definitely. I mean, we can see it's simply a better sensor and better processing, and it's definitely. We hope that this technology will find its way into their cinema line, and hopefully at some point also with the internal RAW codec.
Yeah. It's just a pity that the FX2 was not based on the 5. That could have been so much easier for this camera to be accepted in the market if it had this new technology.
Yeah. Last but not least, let's one more time talk about our microphones. So actually, last time or 2 weeks ago, for the first time, we used these LEWITT microphones, and Felix wrote a nice article explaining why we switched the microphones for the Focus Check podcast. Maybe you just want to give some thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we switched the microphones due to the proximity effect that kind of occurred several times, and some of the people in our audience kind of advised to us that this is sometimes a bit distracting. And then as I also used to work for LEWITT, and for that I knew that technology that is called Aura. I thought like let's switch to these LEWITT Ray microphones, and basically how it works, it's a sensor inside the microphone, and that measures constantly the distance to it, and kind of reduces the signal or the gain basically, and also rolls off those like low frequencies that appear when you get very close, like now with this microphone. So exactly, and I thought also added generally my experience in the microphone industry, while comparing it to the camera world, or generally to the content creation world as well, that it's a bit kind of an old-baked industry a bit. So especially the music industry, like microphones that get used for recording and stuff. I think I've been to a lot of studios around the world, like in Los Angeles or in the US and also in the UK, and it's funny that there are always those like old microphones are the holy grail, like microphones from the 60s also get treated like they were the kind of
ultimate thing.
And this is somehow kind of funny that in this field there is innovation a bit differently treated somehow, and
although on one hand we also have it in the camera world with vintage lenses and like people sometimes shooting on film still because it's a bit of a nostalgia
exactly
for but I guess in the music industry it's even more because of how emotional music is, right? And if you want to have something that maybe sounds like back in the old good days, you also use a microphone like that.
Exactly, yeah. It's a bit, you can compare it to this vintage thing. It's also like vintage lenses are very popular right now, and I think it's very similar. It's to that a bit with microphones as well, and was just pointing that out a bit in this article as well, that it's cool to see that there is also there are some companies out there that try to kind of break through this and kind of come up with new microphones, because I also think there is improvement possible in the microphone technology. And
well, one thing we should add, of course, is that price-wise, this is a completely different area. I mean, the Rode PodMic that we used before is just €100 or dollars, I think, and this one is about 500.
Yeah, it's almost 300 depending where you buy it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Something.
Well, €300 or $450. I guess that's the tariffs. So it's at least 3 times the price, at least. But there is a price difference here, and I mean, it's not that the Rodes were bad, but we've used them for 2 years, but we just feel like this is a significantly better sound.
Exactly.
And it makes sense especially for people who only watch us driving. I think it makes a difference. We have had the feedback, like you said before, that sometimes it's if somebody moves from a mic and it gets a little bit more quiet, of course, for a 1.5 hour episode, it's not always possible to level everything perfectly.
That's why we actually started to look for a different solution.
Yeah.
Because of the comments from the audience about this kind of too boomy or too far away or
Exactly, and of course we have also quite a short turnaround of the episodes, so for me this is a big helper, because if I need to kind of listen through the episode 2 times or so, it's really time consuming and just not feasible also sometimes. And just also maybe to add, I think it's a cool solution that just is a time saver in post, and especially also if you do stuff live, it's also a good thing, because you don't just be it's just a helper, because you don't need to be that mindful if you go that close like I do now, or if I go away, you hear immediately like the difference. And I think that's the cool thing. And like I'm happy to give my opinion about that. So
And I also recommend everybody to watch that little video that you recorded, which is embedded in the article, because it actually gives it just demonstrates really well the difference in sound between the 2 microphones when you do the same kind of thing in front of it.
Exactly.
So if you're into, like podcasting, it's definitely worth checking out. All right. One last thing I want to mention is that Atomos announced the Ninja Raw, which is basically a new iteration of their Ninja 5 product. And there's a lot of different versions out there now. It still is a 5-inch HDR monitor recorder that records ProRes RAW with up to 6K 30p over HDMI only. And since last year, they already, like the Ninja TX Go and Ninja TX have been out. Now the difference here now is that this is HDMI only, and it doesn't have SDI, and it records to CF Express Type B. So basically, it's like a bit of a budget version of what was there before. It's $699 or also €700, and so basically it's just a like a different version of what we've seen before. And it's out now. 1500 nits of brightness is the same. you just see it. If you look at the back, it's basically missing that SDI port. And I'm personally very happy that they moved away from their proprietary, not really proprietary, but their, like SSD caddies a while ago, and now are going for CF Express Type B, because it's much more common and it's much more easy to get those things. And what's not included compared to the TX Go and TX, apart from the SDI input, it's also doesn't have the proxy recording. It does not have camera to cloud or NDI, integrated Wi-Fi or timecode sync. And if you're really interested in the differences, here is a little chart in the article that actually shows it, what the real differences are. But because, of course, there is also the Ninja TX Go, which also is HDMI only, but it has some of those functions that I mentioned. So basically, they wanted to introduce a version that is even more affordable,
They're becoming like DJI, very difficult to follow the names, huh? It's a bit confusing.
A little bit difficult, yeah. But you can tell, I think the time for external recorders has become a little bit more difficult, because you need less and less. You need them less and less because the cameras basically do internal RAW recording. So it only makes sense to release a bare bones version of this, which you still need if you record on the Sony camera, because you can't do RAW internal, for example. But yeah, so that's out now. All right, let's wrap it up.
Good. Thank you, Nino.
Thank you, Johnny. See you next week on CineD Focus Check. And don't forget to like and subscribe, leave a comment, email us at podcast@cined.com. Recommend this show to all your friends and whoever you want to send it to. And we're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you can get your podcasts. And of course, on YouTube in the video version. And see you next week.